Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. We're talking about energy, we're talking about coal, we're talking about new EPA, a rollback of Obama-era EPA guidelines in favor of letting states have more say on carbon emissions and what the effects might be on the economy, on our environment. We're joined by Dr. Paul Fischbeck, Professor of Social and Decision Sciences, Engineering and Public Policy at CMU, and James Van Nostrand, Director of the Center for Energy and Sustainable Development and Professor of Law at West Virginia University. So every 4 years, the government comes out with the National Climate Assessment, and the Trump administration did this last year. November of 2017, the Trump administration, reading from the Washington Post here, released a dire scientific report calling human activity the dominant driver of global warming. The report affirms that climate change is driven almost entirely by human action, warns of a worst-case scenario where seas could rise as high as 8 feet by the year 2100, details climate-related damage across the U.S. that's already unfolding as a result of an average global temperature increase of 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit since 1900. Some people hear that. Some people hear, oh, the so-called consensus of climate scientists, and they say, nope, don't buy it. Where does that debate stand, Dr. Fischbeck?
Well, it's interesting.
Is it a debate?
Well, what's happening is that the support for action on climate issues has really decreased. If you look at either Republicans or Democrats, the Greenpeace was complaining that Democrats aren't even talking about it anymore.
Hold it. There isn't a soul under 25 who isn't obsessed with this. Well, maybe not a soul, but it is a generational obsession.
Well, if you look at any of the polls, what are the big concerns that you have? It doesn't come in the top 20. So you do a national poll and you find out what people are worried about, and it doesn't pop in there at all.
Okay, you need to explain that to us, because that's happening at the same time we're seeing the increased incidence of wildfires, extreme weather events, things that government scientists are concluding are the result of a changing climate. So how are we living through these things? Puerto Rico, the hurricane there, and you're saying at the same time people are showing less interest.
Well, what's happened, I think, is that people have been forecasting dire consequences. And the consequences that have happened have not been as dire as they have predicted. And people are getting immune to sort of these horror stories. The amount of forest fires, the acres that are burned, is much less than it used to be in the 30s.
We're seeing historic fires right now, they're describing in California, largest in the state's history.
But even the Times, Ken, said that most of those were produced by error and intervention. But I wonder whether you're listening to your students, because I would urge you to ask your students whether you think that that's a second-tier concern.
Yeah, but look, honestly, if you look at the polls that have been done, and the problem is to get political movement on the topic, you need to get the public behind it. And as of now, it is not reaching the top level of concerns that people have.
Any ideas on that?
I disagree somewhat in terms of what we're seeing in terms of temperature increases and sea level rise. I think is worse than what was forecasted. We have temperatures above the Arctic Circle that have never been reached before. And so then you have the kind of the rebounding effect of when the ice caps melt, then that means the sun is going to be heating the ocean up even more. And we have tundra releasing large quantities of methane. And so we have a lot of things that are really going to start building upon each other. And we're seeing towns in Florida that are being flooded just at high tides. So we're seeing sea level rise, and we're seeing extreme weather events. The wetter areas are getting wetter, the drier areas are getting drier. We're having heat waves. We're having low temperatures at nighttime are like the highest in history. So I think we're seeing a lot of signs of it right now.
I don't think you'll be able to find 8 students on your campus at CMU who don't believe that this is...
I'm not saying that the question is, what are they mostly worried about? Jobs, the economy, immigration is big. Those are topics that are dominating the conversation. The fact that neither political party is having a major thrust, on this in this area. True indication that the public concern for this is much less than what people would like it to be.
I don't think the Democratic response to the president's withdrawal from Paris and his remarks about worrying about Pittsburgh rather than Paris, I think the cause is a remarkable reaction among Democrats. I mean, they were inflamed, to use a peculiarly unsuitable metaphor.
Once again, I mean, you look at the national polls they're out every year now.
Yeah.
And it is not reaching the level that people would like it to have in order to get the political movement behind it.
Right. Jamie, do you agree that there's fatigue on the issue, that we've been warned about potentially catastrophic events for so long now, that there's just, oh, I've heard all that before. I need to worry about what's in front of me, how to feed my family.
I think I think people tend to see it as a long-term issue, and they're not really recognizing a lot of things that we're seeing are the short-term impacts of climate change. I think another disappointing aspect, it's become a litmus test for Republicans. It's like you cannot believe that there's human activity has a role in climate change. That's become a litmus test. And
yet 10 years ago, the Trump administration argued just the opposite.
Well, 10 years ago, we had John McCain was supporting a cap-and-trade program. Lindsey Graham supported a cap-and-trade program, a comprehensive legislation at the federal level to deal with greenhouse gas emissions. And now you don't see any Republicans that are going to step forward and say, you know, we need to do something about this. And in fact, I guess if it's fossil fuel money that's behind it, but it's become a litmus test, and you cannot say anything about climate change as a Republican.
Well, you know, I think that's a result of a cumulative effect of discouragement among Democrats and liberals on the Hill. But say the Democrats take control of the Hill on November the 7th, and I'm not saying they will or they won't, but if they do, I think that Lindsey Graham would vote for some measures that would involve it. I think there are several Republicans. We had a Republican from North Carolina, Congressman English, who changed his mind 180 degrees.
And he's no longer in Congress.
Well, I understand that.
This is sort of related. Companies like Starbucks and others are banning plastic straws. This seems like the kind of thing that would get your interest. Is this a real step that's going to make a difference, or is it something that companies do for PR and perhaps makes their customers feel good, but really doesn't have a concrete effect?
Well, they're going to replace the straws with plastic lids that have more plastic in them.
Well, or paper straws, or
right. But I mean,
but single-use plastic straws. You know, environmentalists will tell you this is a huge problem, and it's part of what's creating this island of.
It is not a huge problem.
It's a huge symbol.
Is it worth addressing?
Well, I mean, the question is, you know, this is sort of an approach to tackling the bigger problem. Do you go after anything and get the publicity? This was a fourth grader's study this is what it's based on. A fourth grader's report that he did.
But the basis that a fourth grader's report could have caused a national furor is a measure of some urgency among some people. And there won't be a plastic straw at the CMU cafeteria a year from now, I guarantee you.
Once again, so, you know, will it have any measurable impact? No. But does it act as a symbol that people can rally around to encourage other activity? And if the problem is, if this gets pointed out and people believe that it's just being a PR stunt, then it's going to discourage them from when they hear other things that are important. And so, you know, we got to be careful as to what we push forward as a major policy finding. And if it's straws, then we're really missing the boat, and we're going to lose the momentum.
But by grasping at straws, if you'll permit me to say,
I was going to say that, but
I know you had more restraint than I did.
Regretful.
Yeah, but grasping at straws, they're grasping at a symbol.
But does it help or hurt the overall cause?
Well, the overall cause is, as you argued earlier, is supplemented and buttressed by public opinion, and that is a public opinion motivator. You won't find kids today having plastic straws. They won't. They like bottles that you can refill. I mean,
go ahead. I want you to weigh in on this.
Well, I want to say one place where corporations are making a difference is it's like half of the Fortune 500 companies have corporate sustainability objectives. They are driving. It's consumer-driven demand for renewable energy. You have the Amazons, the Googles, the Microsofts. They want their data centers being run on 100% renewable energy. That's driving the market. That's not the government coming in and saying, utilities, you need to have a green electricity supply. These are large corporations, and it's not just the new economy companies. It's the Procter & Gamble's, it's the Walmarts. It's the Toyotas. They have corporate sustainability objectives, and the utilities in the states have to meet those objectives in order to attract jobs.
And the smart people in this town are saying that if Amazon doesn't cite headquarters to here, it's because the city fathers brought the Amazon team to see fracking and to see coal mines and that kind of stuff for a company that really is determined to be sustainable. Not coal mines, I take that back.
I think that when companies are looking at where they're going to locate, they want low-cost electricity and they want green electricity. And I think that's one of the challenges that West Virginia has. Our electricity rates are going up because our utilities doubled down on coal over the last 5 years. So when the industry looking to come to West Virginia, we have expensive electricity and we have 95% coal-fired electricity. It's really hard to attract employers.
You have expensive electricity in an energy state.
Because coal is not competitive, and our ratepayers are bearing the costs of having coal plants that cannot compete in the markets. It's what's causing our electricity rates to go up.
West Virginia is unique in this combination.
Usually, yeah.
Thank God.
It's really, yeah.
We have under a minute to go, but I want to ask you this, Jamie. If the White House were to call you and say, you're an expert on energy, we want to do two things. We want to have affordable energy. We want to have a cleaner environment. Give us your best advice on how to achieve those. And we want to have a vibrant economy at the same time. What's your advice?
I think the growth is in wind and solar. We have 2.5 times the number of people in the United States working in the solar industry than in coal. And battery storage technology, when you couple wind and solar with battery storage technology, that takes the place of the base load plants, the coal and nuclear plants that are declining. And investments in technology in renewable resources, those are paying off. That's why wind and solar and natural gas, they're winning the battle because they've had technological advances and the coal industry has not. They've not invested in research and development. They spend a lot of energy whining about the war on coal instead of actually inventing things that are going to make their product cleaner and more economical.
Got to go. Thank you very much. Both of you, appreciate it. Back with some final thoughts in just a moment.